Hey friends, got something special for you today. We're going to be doing a little pedal demo. This is the Osiris Philter, RIP Phil Lesh. And what this pedal is basically a box form of the filter controls that were present on Phil's Osiris or mission control bass. The current owner of that bass, Jason, hooked me up with this pedal to try out, and I am very grateful for that. I'm not going to get into the history and the lore of the Grateful Dead and Alembic and all of that. You can do that research yourselves, but there's a lot going on in this little pedal, and it's a very cool way to sort of get that Alembic sound on just about any instrument. But aside from just that, and aside from kind of deadifying your bass, this is a really useful pedal in a lot of different applications, and we're seeing a lot more of sort of the high pass, low pass thing coming around in pedal form. A lot of preamp pedals are having that, those types of controls. So I'll briefly go over the controls here. You've got a rotary selector, which gives you the low pass, band pass, high pass, and notch filter. Common misconception, low pass lets the lows through. It doesn't cut the lows. So this is actually, your tone control on your bass is a low pass filter. As you roll it off, you're taking down the high frequencies, leaving the lows to pass through. Band pass, what that's going to do is basically put a hump at the frequency that you select, which you can select down here with the frequency knob. And so you're basically, just imagine your tone as a flat line. Band pass is going to let you kind of boost a select range of frequencies. High pass lets the highs through, cuts the lows. So opposite of a tone control, as you roll this off, you're actually scooping lows away, letting mids and trebles pass through. Very cool, especially if you have a real muddy sound, or maybe a fuzz pedal that's real unruly and you want to clean it up. And then you've got the notch filter, which is the opposite of the band pass. You're just putting a little notch, a dip, a scoop in the selected frequency. So then you've got your direct volume and the filter volume. So basically a wet, dry set of controls there. The frequency knob, as I mentioned, is going to select where, what frequencies are affected. And then the Q control is basically a bandwidth, so how much frequency range you want to control. So basically when the Q is set really low, it's real narrow and you can kind of pinpoint select frequencies. And as you raise that up, you're widening out that curve and affecting a larger range of frequencies. For the sake of this video, I'm going to leave the Q at noon. It gives you, just a good general idea of the different sounds. And I'm also going to be just leaving full-on filter volume. I'm not going to worry about my direct, although I will say that being able to blend your direct signal in is very useful, as some of these sounds can get pretty extreme if you want them to. But before we dig into anything, let's just give you my direct signal so you can hear. I'm using my Takai Hard Puncher Japanese P-Bass, just a tried and true. Got some old round wounds on it, and I'm going to be playing mostly with a pick, just so that you can really hear a lot of that kind of mid-range attack, which is where this pedal really shines. So here's the dry signal on the P-Bass. Got that? All right. So now let's go ahead and start real simple. We'll turn the filter volume all the way up, and we're going to start with the low pass, and we'll put this all the way up because remember, now this is kind of like our tone knob on our instrument, only just kind of on steroids. So this is frequency all the way up is letting everything through 100%, all your frequency. So here is the filter, just full on. Not too dissimilar from the dry sound, a little more oomph, there's a little bit of gain, definitely a little bit more low end as well. So let's go ahead and kind of take this down in like 25% increments. So you can hear now we're getting a little bit of a boost in sort of the upper mids. I should mention that this is similar to the Alembic preamp filter setup I have in my marveLESH basses. So this isn't exactly like your tone knob, because the tone knob isn't putting a little bump right at that roll-off point, whereas this is. So if you can imagine just I'm going to try and do some animations here, but a little slow, you know, just smooth slope versus a little bump and then a slope. This has the bump and then the slope, so you're getting a little bit of a boost at certain frequencies, which is why you get that kind of wah sound when you turn the knob quickly. So let's go to 50% here. Already getting pretty dark and woolly, but tons of low end coming through. When it's all the way down, you're just leaving the subbiest of the subs left. So if you're like wanting to do some dub machine stuff, if you can hear, but the barn roof is a rattling. Now let's skip over to the high pass filter real quick, because that is the opposite of the low pass. So in this case, now we're kind of thinking, when you go up, this is at 0. This is letting just a little bit of treble through, whereas down is kind of the position that is letting everything through. So let's start with that at 0 on the high pass. So you can already hear that's pretty much the same as 100% on the low pass. It's letting everything through. So now let's turn the knob this way. Not a huge change. Let's go up to 50%. So this is that AM radio thing, right? Now we're just rolling those lows right off. So there's almost nothing left. So maybe not super useful on its own, but what this is cool for is if you want to like kind of hone in, get rid of some of the lows, clean your sound up a little bit, but then bring your direct back in. So kind of cool, to just clean up your sound a little bit, get rid of some of that mud and woof. Especially maybe if you're using a rig that you're not used to at a venue or something like that. This is really great to kind of tame your sound. All right, let's get that direct back out of there. Now let's go to the band pass. So this one, as I mentioned, is going to just give you sort of a little bit of a boost at the selected frequency. So let's go ahead and right, and so we can hear that you're not getting the full signal there. You're just getting sort of like the little range of frequencies that you're selecting. So this one, again, not going to be super useful on its own, but great in conjunction with the direct if you want to kind of hone in on some mid-range character. Nasal. Hone in on some sort of low mids there. Maybe if you just want a little bit of extra treble for some slap parts. I'm not going to slap because F that. So subtle differences here, but really you can start really, taking a simple instrument like a P bass that doesn't have, any variety of tone to it other than the built-in tone control, and really start making it sound like a completely different instrument once you bring that direct back in. And lastly, let's go to the notch filter. So this is great if you have like maybe some really annoying high mids, something going on that you want to take out of your signal, but let's hear it just by itself. Here it's kind of like a phasery type sound, right? Real subtle, but you are just, given, this one is nice on its own because you get the full signal, but you're just scooping out a little bit of it. So maybe a P bass is a good example, something that is very mid-rangey. Maybe we want to get it a little more scooped like a jazz bass. That's kind of more of like a jazz bass with both pickups on in parallel, a little more scooped sounding. Let's hear the direct signal. Back to the filter. A little more pick attack, a little less of that mid-range going on. So this one's kind of nice on its own as well. Some of the bass. So, once you start playing around with the Q as well, deciding to take a little bit more, this would kind of widen up the bandwidth, take a little bit more low mids out. As opposed to just like a very specific set of frequencies. So there's a lot going on, a lot to play with. The classic is just going to be that low pass filter though, that just gives you that kind of wah sound. I really love this because Alembic pickups in general too tend to be very bright, but any bass, if you just don't want it to be bright but you still want some of your pick attack to come through, you want some character, this is really great for just finding that sweet spot. Things just start to get a little woolly. Pentatonic Guitar Center bass playing today, but I hope that gives you some idea of what this pedal can do. Obviously there is a lot of depth to this thing. Also, let's give a quick shout out to the awesome Mahogany faceplate here, who has a wood pedal with this awesome engraving and the pearl and abalone inlays. Gives it a nice, fancy touch, a little bit of a nod to that mission control bass. So check this thing out, made in the USA, really awesome. These guys are doing some cool stuff here. I will put the link to everything in the description, and take a look at it, get into the literature of it. Very cool preamp pedal, highly recommend. Thanks for watching.